Hey Marilyn Maya, what are you doing today?
I'm doing an unhaul, my first ever unhaul. Yo soy Boricua, WEPA! Aloha and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marilyn Maya and I'm the baby boomer booktuber. As you can see from my little teaser, I'm 70 but act like 7, but that's okay, right? Just wanted to tell you that WEPA is a Puerto Rican expression meaning a feeling of joy, an expression of joy. And that's what I felt when I'm doing this unhaul, because I just found out that a used bookstore called Book Off is open in I live in the boonies, so nothing is very near to where I live, but it's relatively near where I live. And I can sell my books and get money so I can buy more books. What could be better than that? So I'm doing a big unhaul. I'm not going to talk about all the books that I'm unhauling. This is my first ever unhaul, and most of these books I've never spoken about, and they came from my shelves. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start with the books that I literally threw across the room because I didn't like them. And then I was surprised to find out that some of them I had written reviews, which I used to do. I used to write reviews for fun, or when I got really upset about a book, either on Amazon or Goodreads. And just by scrolling, I found my own review. Let's start with the worst one. It's a Lisa Jewell book. It's called Then She Was Gone. I hated this book with a passion. I literally threw this book across the room. It is so terrible, so horrible. I want to read you a few reviews that explained what I felt about the book. Monica says on Amazon, it's the worst thriller I've ever read. Boring, predictable, and as the author herself stated, bizarre. Took me a month to read it. I liked nothing about this book. Someone said, this is not a mystery. There was nothing compelling or mysterious. The mystery is revealed halfway through. Total disappointment for what it was marketed as. So let's see what it was marketed as. An acutely observed family drama with bone-chilling suspense. Bone-chilling is the word here. This was the way I felt. The subject matter is extremely disturbing and distressing, especially if you have a daughter. So much that I wish I had not read it at all. It's written like other books in this genre, but the subject matter is something abominably horrific. It's the first time I have written a book review on Amazon. And oh, how I wish I had not listened to it. She listened to it on audio and filled my mind with such icky thoughts. This deals with a girl, and I'll read you just the first line. No one ever just disappears. Ellie Mack was the perfect daughter, and then she was gone. Her mother, Laurie Mack, is trying to put her life back together, and then she meets an unexpectedly charming man in a cafe. Before she knows it, she's meeting Floyd's daughters, and his youngest puppy takes Laurel's breath away. So you can kind of guess where this is going. But let me tell you, there was no one that was pleasant to read about. They were all unlikable characters, and one was so bizarre that almost like out of a scary fairy tale. So And the end was just horrific. So I really didn't even want to bring this book to Book Off, but somebody might like it. I don't like Lisa Jewell, let me just say that. I don't like her as a writer, and I am never reading her again. Okay, the next book I threw across the room, or I wanted to because it was too heavy. It's called Jane Casey After the Fire. I didn't know that this was part of a series. Maeve Kerrigan, Irish storyteller. And I found that I had read my own, when I was looking for reviews, because I had read it so long ago, I found that I had written a review about it. And I won't bore you with all the details. I said too many irons in the fire, and that it was the first book I read in the series. And I said that Casey is a good storyteller, but the content is immature and annoying. Her banter between her and Josh grated on me. My main problem was the pacing and the throwing everything against the wall hoping one plot will stick. Too much is worse than not enough, and she's no ton of French, so I'm spoiled. I want the storytelling and the plot and ending to all be satisfying. I know that's too much to ask. It wasn't. And this was too political and one-sided. Also, it was very stereotypical. She had every stereotype of every political, and there was women who were being sex traded in it. There was too many plot lines, too many characters, and not enough there. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The ending was ugh. Came out of nowhere and not good. To end this, I admit it was a page turner. I figured out a few of the plot twists, and that made it better. So I said I loved Irish storytellers, and when I looked for a review, I had rated this 3 stars, and there was only like 2 1-star reviews. Both on Goodreads and Amazon. But looking back at it, all of the 5-star reviews were because this is a series that Jane Casey is putting on, and they love Maeve Kerrigan, who's the detective, and her romantic situations. So I think, and someone else mentioned that maybe the 5 stars were because they liked the series. Okay, so those are the 2 that were really, really horrible. Then let's get, but let me tell you, you might like it. So read it if you want. This is just my personal reviews. I don't like to give disclaimers. There was a whole thing on Booktube about how people go, twist themselves into pretzels doing disclaimers. And this is Booktube, so of course this is my opinion. And everyone else has their own opinion and they're entitled to it. The next book is by Fiona Barton, and the book is called The Widow. I think part of the reason why I was so and someone said this on a review also, we pay good money to buy new copies of these books, and so we're disappointed when our money is not spent well. And Stephen King wrote a blurb on this. If you like Gone Girl and The Girl on the Train, you might want to pick up The Widow. Engrossing, suspenseful. This is not true. It's not like Gone Girl. It's boring. It's not like Girl on the Train. But I didn't like Gone Girl and Girl on the Train, so I should have looked at this. But it wasn't really very obviously on the Amazon site or wherever site I bought it from. So this is the plot in a nutshell. There's a lot Jean hasn't said over the years about the crime her husband was suspected of committing. She was too busy being the perfect wife, standing by her man, while living with the accusing stares and the anonymous harassment. Now her husband is dead and there's no reason to stay quiet. There are people who want to hear her story. They want to know what it was like living with the man. She can tell them that there were secrets. There always are in a marriage. The truth, what's all anyone wants, but the one lesson Gina's learned is that she can make people believe anything. There's a lot of trigger warnings in this about, it's disgusting. It's about child sexual abuse. And that's what her husband was suspected of, being a pedophile. So even though she went through the marriage protesting he wasn't, there is a lot of trigger warning, and it was boring. And I don't suggest you read The Widow, despite what Stephen King said. But you might like it. My next book is by Ruth Ware. I have a complicated relationship with Ruth Ware. I love her writing, but I don't like her endings. This book is not too bad. It was called The Lying Game, and it's much better than her first book, which I really disliked, and a lot of people liked it. So if you liked it, don't come after me. Okay, you can come after me. I can handle it. Anyway, it's The Lying Game, and it really bothers me. I remember some of it, but there's no blurb on it. There's only like wonderful blurbs by Ruth, what's her name? Reese Witherspoon's book club. And so many questions until the last page, she says. And missing Big Little Lies? No, I'm not. Dig into this psychological thriller about whether you can really trust your nearest and dearest. And basically, now that I'm remembering it, it's about women who are, told in two timelines, and there's women in this school, and then when they are grown and living their own lives, and there's a secret. So that's a pretty familiar trope. I didn't hate this book, you know. She does write very atmospheric, and her writing is very good. So I'll give it a 3-star. You can pick it up if you want to. I know a lot of people love Ruth Ware. The next book is I Found You by Lisa Jewell. And believe it or not, this wasn't that bad. It's better than her other books, but I'm still going to trade it in. So, in the windswept British seaside town of Riding House Bay, single mom Alice Lake finds a man sitting on the beach. So what does she do? He has no name, no idea how he got there. Let's invite him in with my daughter. That sounds like a great idea. Anyway, meanwhile, in a London suburb, newlywed Lily Momrose grows anxious when her husband fails to return from work. But the police soon deliver even more disturbing news. The man she married had never existed. So this was okay. It was unbelievable, but it was okay. This woman had 2 men, I think, living in her house at one point, which is something you have to be very careful before you just move a stranger that's sitting on the beach into your house. But I guess not if you're Lisa Jewell writing a novel. That's pretty catty, but it wasn't so bad. It really wasn't. Even though I'm saying it's unbelievable, but it wasn't so bad. The next one is one that's really big on Booktube, and it's The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. He's the best-selling author of Moriarty and the internationally best-selling The House of Silk, as well as the New York Times best-selling Alex Rider series for young adults. He created Midsummer Murders and the BAFTA-winning Foyle's War on PBS. I didn't know this when I went into this book. People love this book. It's written in 2 separate timelines. I really enjoyed the first timeline. It's actually like 2 mysteries in one. And he puts himself into the mystery, which a lot of people think is clever, but I didn't like. So when I read the second, I put it down after the first part one of the story, and then it goes into the second part, and it wasn't as good as the first part. And I just, all in all, I gave it 3 stars. But I know I don't have to talk about it because people love the Magpie Murders. To me, it was meh, but I'm going to trade it in for somebody who really likes it. As is Ruth Ware's Turn of the Key, which I don't have to talk about at all because it's her, I don't know if it's her 3rd or 4th book. This was the last one that I read. And I'll have to say it's the best book of hers that I read. And I'll just read a really short part. When Rowan Kane stumbles across an ad for a live-in nanny post with a staggeringly generous salary, it seems like too good an opportunity to miss. And when she arrives at Heatherbrow House, she is smitten by the luxurious smart home fitted out with all modern conveniences by the beautiful Scottish Highlands and by the picture-perfect family who lives there. What she doesn't know is that she's stepping into a nightmare, one that will end with a child dead and herself in prison awaiting for murder. I have to say the ending was surprising. It wasn't pleasant, but it was surprising. And the book itself, I've read about 3 books already about smart homes, and this must be the new trope that's the latest. It was okay for me. Some people loved it, some people hated it. It's going to the book off. Then I have a few other books that I'm not going to speak too much about, but I think that maybe a younger audience would appreciate them better. They're short story collections, and I'm not really keen on short story collections. One is I Can't Help Myself, Lessons and Confessions from a Modern Advice Columnist by Meredith Goldstein. And the other one is by Sloane Crosley, I Was Told There'd Be Cake. They're very well written. Let me get these. They're well written and very clever, snappy, but it wasn't for me. I thought that in I Can't Help Myself, the advice columnist, she goes into her story, so it's a memoir, and then she answers people's questions. They write to her for advice. And that part I didn't like. I liked when she was talking about her mother and her own story. But when it got into her answering, being the advice columnist that she was and giving advice, I'm an age of Dear Abby, and it wasn't anything spectacular. And I Was Told There'd Be Cake. It was cute, but it was a 3-star. So I hope somebody, maybe younger, maybe a millennial, will get more out of it than I did. Okay, now my last book, it's a little tricky. It was published by She Writes Press, which they are an independent publisher who you have to pay to get published most of the time. Now it's all of the time. But I've read a few books that they actually paid to be published, and I think this might be one of them. The other one was another book, another memoir. I was looking, I know that I had mixed feelings about this. And when I was looking for the reviews, I came upon my own review. So I think I was being very generous in my review, but I'll just read you a little bit of it. The book is well written and shows the long-term effect of mental illness, child abuse, and abandonment. As a memoirist myself, perhaps I am more sensitive to this genre. I thought the book, although vivid, was repetitive. How many times does the author foreshadow the women in her life smoking? Too many, in my opinion. Also, as a memoirist who was as honest as Miss Myers about her family dysfunction, she's surprisingly mum about her relationships. As a reader, I would like to know more than a sentence describing the failure of all of her romantic relationships and if her childhood trauma caused it. I understand that she has children and didn't want to talk negatively about their fathers, perhaps. But it's important to satisfy the reader if you are writing such a revealing and honest memoir. One other small complaint: it was obvious to me in the beginning her grandmother and mother were mentally ill, and the revelation at the end wasn't much of a climax. I also think, although the details were interesting, the author could have gotten the same effect with less words. Even good writing can be wordy. And then I said, having said that, I think I would be interested in reading more of her. And I have to say that my title on this book was, it's more of an autobiography than a memoir. And it should show that. It should tell us that. And it was also, as many memoirs were overwritten. I knew that it was self-published when I read the book, which is very hard for me to say because I have nothing against self-publishing. I've read many wonderful books that were self-published. But when it comes down to memoirs, I'm very sensitive because I'm trying to write a good memoir. I hope I did write one good memoir. And one thing you can't do is be repetitive. And this book is big, it's large. It's almost a tome. And it could have been cut down a lot and more could have been put in that was not put in. But I have a lot of respect for Linda Joy Myers. She's big in the helping other people who write memoirs be better. So it's hard for me to review a memoir that is sort of self-published. Anyway, I think she got a lot of good reviews on both Goodreads and Amazon. So I say, I read it to the end and there was a lot of good in it. And I can really relate to the mother-daughter, though her mother was horrible. It's a daughter's journey from abandonment to forgiveness. So it's worth a read. But I think I'm going to let someone else read it. Well, that's the end of my big unhaul. I have more books to unhaul, but I spoke about them already. These were books on my shelf. I hope that maybe you'll want to read some of these books. Have you read some of these books? Let me know in the comments. I'm very happy if you would like and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell, and you will get more of Mae West, Barbara Streisand, and me. I hope that's not too much. So until we meet again, my friends, aloha oi.